on this episode of Slainte. We're in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, as we visit the Annapolis Cider Company. We'll get the full tour of the cidery, find out more about the apples of the Annapolis Valley, and learn about their unique Something Different cider program that gives back to the community. Today I'm on my way to the popular town of Wolfville, Nova Scotia to visit the Annapolis Cider Company. With over 8 varieties of cider on tap, these guys are making good use of the apple. I just know I'm gonna walk away with a few favorites today. Let's go see what they're up to. To begin our day, we meet up with the head cider maker, Melanie, to learn about how she arrived at the Annapolis Cider Company, as well as learn about their Something Different program.
We get our apples from all the growers in the Annapolis Valley, essentially.
How do you feel about that personally, using the local apples? Is that important to you?
It's very important to us. I'd like to think that we're a little bit of a locavore company. Like, we like to promote local. We love what the Annapolis Valley has to offer. We have so much variety here of different, not only apples, but other fruits and flavors that are available to us here. And so it's really important to us to make sure that we are promoting and inspired by the Annapolis Valley here in the ciders that we make it.
So what brought you into cider making?
I have a background in chemistry. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I got to know Sean Miles and his wife Gina Haverstock. Sean and Gina are the co-founders of the Annapolis Cider Company, and Sean is also an apple researcher, professor at Dalhousie University. And we got to know each other through friends, and sort of started doing some work with him in his apple research orchards and whatnot at the Kentville Research Center, and it just sort of all grew from there. It was sort of a natural extension of my chemistry background, I guess, to sort of get into cider making.
So you definitely, like you would say, you're a science brain kind of person?
I'm a science brain kind of person, yeah. But I also, I like to think I'm a creative person. So those two elements really play off each other really well in terms of cider making and the creativity aspect of it as well. So when we first started out, we are very fortunate to have a really close relationship with Sterling's Farmers Market down the road. And they do actually the majority of our apple pressing. But when we first started down this, crazy adventure of cider making, I had the opportunity to go there when they were doing a juice press for their own sweet cider. And so as they do that, they bring out bins of McIntosh, and they bring out bins of Cortland's, and they bring out all of the apples that they're using in their blends. And so I sort of hung out there for the day, and I'm like, okay, well, what does Mac juice taste like? What does Cortland juice taste like? What do all of these apple varieties taste like on their own? And as you get to do that, you sort of start to think about what are good blends that will go together, because you want apples that are juicy. You want apples that are going to yield a lot of juice. You choose apples based on their color. McIntoshes are great because they have great flavor, but they also have this beautiful golden hue when they're in their juice form, and it lends a really beautiful golden cider. You choose them for different sweetnesses and different sharpnesses and different acidities and different maybe like slightly bitter elements that you want to add in. Being able to go and do that and profile the different apple varieties helps us make decide on our blends.
Can you tell me a bit about the Something Different series?
The Something Different series of cider is cider that will be like a one-off. So it's a cider that changes from batch to batch. And so we like to highlight in the Something Different series what else is available in the Annapolis Valley. So for instance, some of our Something Differents have been peach and peppercorn. We've taken local peaches and infused the ciders with like black peppercorns, which sounds really different, and that savory element, but to create a cider that is unique and flavorful and highlights everything that the valley has to offer. In addition to being able to do these creative, unique ciders, we also like to highlight a local charity with our Something Different ciders. So for every refill that we do, because the Something Different series is only available on tap as a refill, we will donate 50 cents from that refill to a local charity.
And how are you finding people respond to them?
People are really, really invested in it, it turns out, in terms of, you know, what their favorite one was. And, you know, every time like the new one comes out, like just like the excitement and the comments and everything, it's incredibly gratifying to hear how excited and into the Something Different ciders that we do, for sure.
After our chat, Melanie offered to give me an in-depth look at the cider making process.
So welcome to the cellar. This is where we make all of our cider on site. Generally, we have fresh apple juice pressed off location, and it comes here and enters these tanks here. So these are fermenting tanks, and generally they hold about 10,000 liters. 10,000 liters is approximately 60 bins of apples. So just to sort of give you a little bit of
That's a lot of apples.
It's a lot of apples, yeah. Traditionally, our apple cider base is mostly 40% Macintosh and 20% Cortland, with other varieties making up the extra. This right here, tank right here, is our fermenting tank, and so the juice enters this, and this is where the whole fermentation process takes place. From juice to cider. When the fermentation is finished, the cider gets called racked, what we call racking, and we rack it over into this tank here, which holds our dry cider base. So this is what we pull from when we make crisp and dry and classic, a good deal of the Something Different. Our fermentation process, we do it very low and slow here, is what we call it. So it's about a 6-week process from juice to cider. And that's very long in the fermentation world. And the reason why we keep a fermentation period that long is to sort of really get a lot of these apple aromatics to come out, so that we can really highlight the flavors of the apples. So once it reaches this stage, it's ready to blend back with fresh apple juice, and everything gets blended down here in these tanks here. So these tanks here are called bright tanks. And we pump in the cider from here and the fresh juice for here, and we use them for blending the cider batches to the right scale, and then we sort of filter from tank to tank as we get down to a sterile cider at the end, and then carbonate there. These tanks here are custom. Normally, our tanks, carbonation tanks, are vertical, upright tanks, and not horizontal tanks. So we have very height limitations here in the cidery.
Yes.
It's partly why I work here, is because I fit. And we don't do a lot of kegging here at the Annapolis Cider Company. Everything that's on tap upstairs is linked directly to the tanks down here. So we like to think of these 2,300 liter bright tanks as giant kegs or serving tanks. So we're serving the absolute freshest possible cider that we can.
Next up on Slainte, we chat with General Manager Jill about the atmosphere and experience of Annapolis Cider Company. And then we talk with co-founder Sean to discuss his interest in apples and how it all led to the inception of the cidery. As soon as you walk through the doors of the Annapolis Cider Company, you are met with an inviting atmosphere and a relaxed setting. To learn more about this, we met up with the general manager, Jill. How long have you been involved with the cider company here?
I started here last spring. So they had almost a year under their belt as far as being open when I came on board. And it's been pretty exciting being on from near the beginning and seeing the growth and seeing the company evolve. You know, I was here for the first renovation, and we have another one happening in the fall. So it's really exciting to be on from kind of the ground and see things move ahead.
What can you tell me about choosing Wolfville for the location of Annapolis Cider Company?
Well, it seemed to make sense. Sean and Gina obviously live locally. I live locally. Melanie's in Port Williams, so we are local Wolfville people. For me, when I first walked in the door as a customer, I looked around and my first thought was, well, obviously, you know, I grew up in the Valley, and it was one of those things. You walked in the door and you thought, this should have been here years ago. So I'm so glad someone had the vision to do it. Wolfville suits the location. We have a good core group, a community to draw on here. We have the students here, the university here, and we get a lot of the Halifax tourists coming through as well.
Have you ever had people come in who don't like cider and then they try something?
Oh, we have a lot of converts, yes. There's always the big debate. People ask a lot, is cider more like beer or is it more like wine? We have a premium cider, so a lot of people associate it with wine, but we have a lot of beer drinkers that have converted to cider drinkers, for
That
sure.
must be fun.
It is fun. It's always really exciting when you pour them a little taste from the tap, especially or something different. It's when you describe what it is, it doesn't often capture how amazing, our cider is or the flavors are together, especially in the Something Different series where you're mixing juices and stuff like that. So it's always exciting to see people have their first taste.
Can you go over maybe a little bit of what people can get when they come in here, some of the services or the experiences that people can have?
For sure, yeah. And that's exactly what we want. We want people to have an experience when they come here to the cidery. So we do have a large retail area, and we always have 11 or 12 bottled ciders that you can choose from, many flavors, different varieties. We have our heritage ciders as well that are single variety ciders. And then you can always enjoy a tasting at our tasting bar. So we have 2 different flights you can choose from. A signature flight, which is our ciders on tap, and then a premium flight, which showcases some of our one-way bottled products. We also have cidery tours, so it's a good place. You can come and spend 15 minutes or an hour. It's one of those places that you can kind of settle in and make it your own.
What can you tell me about maybe the movement that's happening in Nova Scotia with craft beers and cider? Is it's increasing, or do you think it's settled at this point?
Oh, I think it's increasing. And I think it's exciting. I lived out west for many years, and the microbrewery business out in BC has been there and been pretty stable and had a really strong foundation for 20, 30 years. It's really started here in the last 8 or 10 years, and it's just growing, and that's exciting to see. People are traveling to Nova Scotia just for that experience, and so it's exciting to be a part of that.
One obvious aspect to cider making is, of course, the apple. We now meet up with Sean, a co-founder of the cidery, to learn how his research background led to the cidery's creation and the choices behind the apples they use.
My regular job, I work in apple research and apple breeding. I'm interested in all these diverse apple varieties that we have in the valley, and over the last decade we've heard a lot in the Maritimes, and especially here in Nova Scotia, about the need for small businesses in rural communities, and that's what's going to sustain us in the long run. And it helps a lot that my wife, Gina, and the co-founder, is also a winemaker. And so, I knew about apples, and she knew about winemaking, and so you put the two together, and it kind of makes sense that if we wanted to do something, cider would be it.
So you research apples. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How that fueled this business?
It's more that it fueled the business in the sense that I was gaining familiarity with the industry in general. So learning about, the growers and what varieties we have in the ground and where those apples end up, right? So they end up going, we produce about, 100 million pounds of apples every year in the Annapolis Valley, right? So where do all these apples go? And it's right around the time the craft beer industry is popping up and that kind of thing. So it made a lot of sense. So the job really was just getting familiar with where are the apples, who's growing them, what varieties are in the ground, and so on. So my research deals in particular with preserving diversity in apples.
So did you know going into your research that you would eventually make this location?
I got the position as a researcher and thought that this was it.
Yeah.
This is what I would be doing for the rest of my life. And, the main motivation for doing all of this, and my wife and I have been committed to this local food movement for a long time. When you hear about the fact that we're having these, when we're forecasting the future in rural communities in Nova Scotia, that we see this bleak sort of, demise of our rural communities, and we see it, just drive around and we see it. The simplest solution to all this, I'm absolutely convinced, is people, if they would just eat what is grown around them, right? We would have such an enormous economic boom in our region if everybody just ate local. It would be tremendous. And so part of motivating people to do that is to provide really great products that are made from local agriculture. So grab what's growing next door, turn it into something fantastic, give people a great experience, and while they're there, teach them a little bit about where it comes from and why it's important to support local. Right?
It's beautiful. I love it. And on top of that, you also have a variety called Something Different.
Yeah, people are really looking for something new. More and more people are looking for something different all the time. And so we decided that when we put out this something different, that every tank that we produce is going to be associated, every batch is associated with a local charity, so that when we pour a refill here at the bar, that we would give 50 cents to a local charity. And that's worked out great, because it actually puts us in contact with more people in the community, and it puts the customers in contact with these charities, right? And so the charities have even gotten back to us and said, that was really great. You know, we've actually had people come and contact us and said, hey, is there any way that my organization can help out? Because I was at the Annapolis Cider Company and it's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. So it's sort of like just acting as a connecting point for charities and customers and being that connection point. It also helps that Melanie is a genius down in the cellar. You know, she's like her creativity is boundless, it seems. You know, she keeps on coming up with these crazy combinations. We're not a volume pushing company. We're really focused on quality, trying to create a unique, we just want to be a great company, right? We don't want to be, we're not looking to be the biggest. The biggest will never be, right? So, you know, more and more we're focusing in on that, what makes the experience really special and what makes the products really special.
So you're capturing Nova Scotia essence and serving it in a bottle.
Yeah, and in a way, you're tapping into the valley, right? You're trying to capture the best flavors of the valley and stick them in a bottle.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Next up on Slainte, we sit down with head cider maker Melanie to taste the product line of the Annapolis Cider Company. Getting a behind-the-scenes look at the Annapolis Cider Company has proven that this local cidery has the community at the forefront of what they do. It was incredible to learn the ways that the local environment could contribute to such a crucial element of this local business. Now it was time to sit down with the head cider maker Melanie to taste the cider they are known for.
Okay, we have a selection of ciders here. I'm going from driest to sweetest on the tasting paddle here. And the first one on your tasting paddle is Crisp and Dry, which is one of our most popular ciders. It's from our signature series. It's made from a blend of apples in a cider base. And it's just finished off with a touch of apple juice.
Oh.
Freshly pressed apple juice.
It's beautiful color.
Yeah, so that beautiful golden color really comes through from the Macintosh apples.
Good. I love the smell of apple, fresh apple.
It is nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, dry, slightly sweet, but not like overwhelming.
No, and it packs a little bit of a punch. It's 7.7% alcohol, but it should be like clean and crisp and it's a little bit wine style.
Very fresh.
Yeah, and the carbonation really like bumps up that like fresh tart acidity to it. So the second cider on here is one of my favorite ciders. This one is Old Fashioned Gravenstein from our Heritage series. We've done this cider a couple of times. Like I said, this apple is only available in early harvest season, so it's a September, early October apple. And it's really interesting to see how that apple, you really get like a terroir from it in terms of what each harvest is like. So this year's harvest is slightly different from last year's harvest, which makes it really fun to sort of play with a little bit. So this year it's a bit more deep golden than it was in our first year, but it has really nice fresh apple aroma to it, which is a little bit different than the apple blends. This is a single varietal cider and it's just the Gravensteins. An amazingly aromatic apple.
Really aromatic. I'm really surprised actually. I mean, the other one smells like a fresh apple, but this one's very specific.
This one just sort of brings you right back to the beginning of fall. The leaves are just starting to turn.
Yeah.
And
I grew up next to apple orchards, so this really reminds me. Yeah, it all reminds me of my childhood. Okay. I see why this might be your favorite.
Yeah. So it has like a little bit of the sweetness to it is a little bit more subtle than the next cider that you're going to taste, which is classic, which is a bit more sweet. But it's still there, and it's really balanced out by this great acidity that Gravenstein has.
It's really nice. It's actually, for one apple, it's quite a complex flavor.
It is, yeah, it is. We like to call it sort of like our elegant cider. It's very, it's sort of more delicate and a bit more redolent of like fresh apples, but it very much stands on its own.
Oh,
that
wow.
apple. Yeah.
So good. I really like that one.
So the next one is Classic, which is another one of our signature series ciders. And Classic, I like to think, is all about apples. So this cider has a little bit more of that fresh apple juice added back into it to balance it out.
Okay.
And it's really sprightly and a happy, like summer.
Sprightly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that word. Okay, yeah, it's quite, I don't want to say tart to start, but it has a little bit of a tartness to it.
Yes.
And then it kind of mellows
It's
into a
important
little
when
sweet.
you have a sweeter style cider that you really balance it out with acidity to sort of help it a little bit.
Yeah, I can see how this one feels.
And you can probably feel that one has a little bit more of a mouthfeel to it. It's a little bit of a heavier style cider because it does have that extra sweetness in it.
I'm definitely noticing the sweetness, but not like in a bad way. Some ciders are like overwhelmingly sweet.
Right. And
These
I should
ones
say,
are all
nothing
very...
contains concentrates.
Yeah.
Nothing is sweetened at the end with any like sugar or anything. Everything is naturally done.
Oh, that's nice. It's got a different
It's kind
finish
of like
to it.
tasting the valley, right? Like you get a whole gamut of the different apples, and it's really fresh, and it's just it's all about apple. And then the last one here on the tasting paddle is Honey Blossom, which is a new release in our Something Different series, and this one is really fun. So this one, the base cider, dry cider blend, has been infused with elderflowers and lilac blossoms, so the purple lilac blossoms. And you can see it has a slightly different tinge to it than the other ciders, so some of that color has come through. And so the elderflower really adds those floral aromatics and will come through in the palate as well. And the lilacs are surprisingly a little bit peppery. So they almost have like a hint of pepper to them.
I'm not surprised, actually.
Really?
I'm not surprised with
by how
lilac.
quite peppery they were. And then it's finished off with a touch of local wildflower honey.
See, and I just smelled it, and I was like...
You can totally, yeah. It's very floral. I like to say it's very lush.
Yeah.
This one has like it's actually a very full body cider because of that honey that's been added in at the end, but it's not overpoweringly sweet. It sort of stands nicely on its own, and yeah. So it's different, something different, and it's very unique, I think, but...
Yeah, definitely get...
That is very
the
complex.
Sweetness.
Yeah.
Then it goes into a bit of peppery kind of, and then there's almost like an earthy stem.
Yeah,
that comes
it has
through
a
at
little
the
bit. It has a
end.
little bit more tannin to it, right? Like so that's coming through from the blossoms.
Oh, so much fun.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, this one is a fun one. And the Something Different are so fun to make. Like, when we're downstairs throwing together my crazy concoctions and stuff, and like bringing the staff down to say, which ones of these do you think would work, or which ones of these do you like the best? Like that's what makes this job fun.
Annapolis Cider Company. Wow. They might look small, but they're having a big impact on the cider industry and the community around them. From the ground up, their focus has been on creating jobs, giving back, and making quality cider from local ingredients. And let me tell you, it is some of the best I have ever had.